Here it is, the Baco Tunes podcast with mattomunoz. Audio brought to you by Chain Cone Styles.
Greetings, Baco Tunes listeners. It is I, Matt Munoz, with a long-awaited all-new episode of the Baco Tunes podcast. Now, if you've been listening and enjoying the mix of classic episodes from the vault over this past year, I seriously appreciate you for subscribing and supporting. I've been teasing the return of Baco Tunes for a while, and it feels great to be back with my first guest for this new chapter, Jorge Casillas, bassist for Riverside, California punk legends Voodoo Glow Skulls. This episode has it all: extensive California punk rock history, stories from the road, being young and wild, signed to Epitaph Records during the height of 90s punk rock, hanging with their friends Sublime, the Cadillac Tramps, being embraced by the Gilman Street punk scene, dropping their debut the same day as No Doubt's Tragic Kingdom, moving on with their new vocalist Ephraim Schultz and a new album, Living in the Apocalypse, plus music and a lot more. This episode was in the making for so long, I didn't even need to prepare questions. We just rolled. So let's get to it. Here's my interview with Jorge Casillas of Voodoo Glow Skulls here on the Baco Tunes podcast. So Jorge, I've been a fan of Voodoo Glow Skulls, as a lot of kind of like my fellow musicians, the cats that we kind of came up skating, late 80s. Of course, we started forming bands. I formed a band, Mento Buru, in the mid 90s and the early 90s. But I had no idea that there was like ska punk, beyond what I assumed was ska punk. I grew up in the 80s, so it was just like as ska punk as I thought it was Oingo Boingo. That was kind of, and then when Fishbone came along and I discovered Fishbone, it was just like, it was all about, my life was just about watching Fishbone. I saw them, I followed them religiously all over Los Angeles, all over California. I went to the Truth and Soul album release party at the John Anson Ford Theater. It was like Double D Nose and Schoolie D, the rapper Schoolie D. So as far as I was concerned, it started and it ended with Fishbone, man. Fishbone was my life, and then I started playing ska and all that because I was a band geek. There's a reference to Band Geek Mafia. I mean, we were all band geeks. When I started working in a music store here in Bakersfield, it was a Music Plus, then became like Blockbuster Music. The sounds people were asking for were coming more from like an independent Southern California scene. People were coming in asking for a band called Sublime. It was like, I had no idea who they were. But also at the same time, I'd known who No Doubt was, because around the same time that I saw Fishbone, and I was a huge fan of like the Untouchables, and the first time I saw the Untouchables, I got to see Skeletones and No Doubt, also at the John Anson Ford Theater. That was like ground zero for all these shows. We had to drive all the way from Bakersfield, man. If we had like a fucked up car, we made it to Hollywood in some form or another. So I started kind of getting introduced to all these bands, but it was never at the level of the intensity of when I found Voodoo Glow Skulls. When I got Who Is This Is, and I remember putting it in and I was just, holy shit. I don't understand why I didn't know about these guys earlier, but maybe you guys were just so new at the time, and so independent. I didn't know what the reach was for distribution, but like 1988, 1989, is that when you guys formed?
Yeah, it was like late 87, early 88, actually.
And you guys are from Riverside. The three brothers that started the band, it was you, Eddie, and Frank?
Well, actually, no. The guys that started the band were me, Eddie, and Jerry, our original drummer. And then Frank came in probably a few months in. After we had started playing already, Frank decided he was like doing like local DJ stuff, kind of.
What was he DJing?
Like dance music kind of stuff.
Oh,
like
really?
And then he decided, he was like, hey, I'll just sing for you guys until you guys find a singer, get you guys like parties and stuff like that, like.
Was it always the Voodoo Glow Skull style that we see now, or did it kind of go through an evolution?
It kind of went through an evolution in phases. It's always been like punk based, but we played like punk. Like the first song we ever wrote was Thrift Shop Junkie. So that, that song, that was like the first song that we ever wrote together. Then it was like Closet Monster. We would play kind of like fast, funky stuff, almost like Fishbone and Red Hot Chili Peppers would.
Yeah, because everybody was sounding like that at the time, right?
Yeah, we had some of that stuff. We called it frantic funk, like just super fast funk. riffs. Some of those songs made it on, I think, I want to say Potty Training Years. I'm not sure if they made it on Who Is This Is or not, but maybe some of the 7 inches as well, but I can't really remember off the top of my head. But the band started off just kind of like that. I mean, we even did like a B-52s cover, Your Own Private Idaho, and like just did like just random.
Were you and Eddie both playing instruments at the same time, or who kind of had the bug first?
Actually, Eddie started super young. I want to say like the 5th or 6th grade. One of his friends, this guy named David, I think, was playing guitar at the time. Had started playing guitar. And I remember him telling my mom, like, oh, David started playing guitar, taking lessons or something. He said, I want to do that. So I think my mom, I can't remember, I think bought him an acoustic or electric. I can't remember. But bought him a guitar, and then he just started kind of playing with it. And then I remember going to guitar lessons with him. You know, I would go to the music stores, a couple different ones, and just sit there with my mom while he was in there taking lessons. And then Jerry, who was just a neighborhood friend of ours, his family had moved from Costa Rica and were same as us, you know, like transplants from somewhere else. Like me and my brothers were born here, but Jerry was like born in Costa Rica, transplanted to LA like my parents did, you know, his mom did with his sister and his grandma.
Where are your parents from?
My parents are from Jalisco. My mom's from Guadalajara. And my dad is from El Salto, which is a suburb of Guadalajara. So they ended up in Riverside at the same time we did, in the same neighborhood. And we just happened to be into the same kind of stuff. When we were kids, you know, we would do stuff like set up fake stages and put like stereo speakers and play records behind us and make fake guitars and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, we'd always go to concerts and stuff, you know, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, that kind of stuff.
Were your parents listening to like everything that I expect, like my parents were probably listening to, like lots of Spanish stuff, but like, you know, the American stuff kind of weaved its way in there too, or what?
My dad was more into like cumbia and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And my mom was more ranchera, you know, more like, you know,
regional.
Yeah, you know, and that's the kind of stuff, you know, that and oldies. I don't remember my mom listening to too much music as a kid. Now, like pretty much all day, every day, she's just blasting like cumbia or ranchero music, either or.
Yeah.
My dad used to, in the car, always play like oldies and like, I remember he was a big, like one of the only times I ever saw my dad cry as a kid was when Marvin Gaye died.
Oh yeah, man. And that was so sad too, man. It was like so tragic.
Yeah. And he was like really into that music as well. I remember when we were kids, we had like a record player, you know, like one of those big, like all-in-one 8-track and
sound design.
And the speakers, big wooden top, you'd have to pull up, and you know. And we had like, remember listening to this record called the Funny Bone Favorites a lot. It was like a oldies, almost like obscure oldies compilation of like, you know, like the weird shit you'd hear on Dr. Demento.
Yeah, of course. I love those, man. K-Tel or something like something that you get on the mail order. Yeah. I dig that. Yeah.
So we had those compilations, and we were listening to those obsessively, like me, Eddie, and Jerry, and you know, Frank too. But you know, Frank was a little bit older than us three, so it was mostly me, Eddie, and Jerry hanging out. You know, when we were younger, Frank didn't really like. You know, he was off being a high school dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He didn't have time for that kid brother shit.
You know, so like we were, you know, like the younger dudes kind of hanging out still, and we would listen to those records obsessively, and listen to like the Richard Pryor records, you know, obsessively. Listen to like what else? The Cheech and Chong records.
Of course,
We would listen to. We had like AC/DC, like you know, Dirty Deeds, fucking on 8-track. You know what I mean?
Did you inherit those, or was that what your dad or your parents were listening to, or did you get them yourself?
That's what Frank was kind of starting to get into at that time. He was like big time into metal, like the British metal wave. It was like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all those bands. And it kind of trickled down to us, you know what I mean? And I mean, big time down to us, because like I was 10 years old at Live After Death when Iron Maiden played Long Beach Arena. You know what I mean? I saw all the Judas Priest tours. You know what I mean? I was at again, Long Beach Arena when Rob Halford, he got pushed out on the Harley and he hit his head.
Oh, yeah.
Blood came gushing out. And then years later, we ended up with a bus driver on one of our tours that it was the guy who pushed him out. It was his job. He was one of the roadies, and it was his job. It was two guys' job to push him out. The Harley wasn't on. It was just in the sound speakers. And the ramp would come down, and they'd push him out. Two guys underneath the drum riser. And the guy said, you know, they pushed him out too early, and he hit his head. Yeah. And He ended up as our bus driver years later, and he told us the story. I was like, we were like, dude, we were there. You know, what I mean? It was kind of surreal.
How many times did you have him retell that story?
When we were doing tour buses, we ended up with a lot of like the metal year bus drivers, which was kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like to hear the stories. Because when I was a kid, it was kind of like going to the Long Beach Arena to the big stadium metal shows and seeing like the tour buses. Like my parents would drop us off. Like my dad at that time we lived in Riverside already. You know, they lived in LA for a while when I was like a baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like that's where I was born. But they would drive us out to LA, usually my dad, and he would just drop us off and then go and do whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, what would he tell you? What were the rules that you guys can, if you guys can get dropped off? What were the rules, the Latino family rules that he kind of threw at you?
Dude, to be honest with you, my parents were totally relaxed, dude. They were like not strict really at all. It was just like,
just take care of each other. Don't die.
He's like, yeah, you know, I can't complain. My dad would give us money for T-shirts and, you know,
yeah,
and the programs and, you know, all that shit. You know, I remember coming out of the Motley Crue concert, the same venue, and I bought one of those fucking painter's hats. It was the Shadow of the Devil tour.
Yeah.
And
I saw that tour too, dude. Here in Bakersfield.
I got one of those hats with the flaps. Remember the hats?
Yeah, like the Foreign Legion
with a pentagram fucking hats or pentagrams down the two back. They were like painter's caps, right? But they had pentagram flaps on the back. And yeah, I remember coming out of the concert, dude, and my parents all Catholic, hardcore Catholic, you know, and I got this hat with pentagrams on it. They were chill. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was like, just be cool. Don't do drugs. I don't care what you listen to.
Yeah.
Oh, my mom taught catechism, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Don't be a cholo. Was always
Oh man.
But anyways, yeah, that stuff, like it was kind of like those shows that, like, I remember my dad dropped me off one particular, I think it was Live After Death, and for some reason we saw like the loading dock area. I remember seeing like the buses and the semis, and I remember just thinking like, man, like it'd be awesome like to be able to do that, wondering like, I wonder what goes on like behind the scenes kind of thing.
And you had access to all that because, I mean, where you guys were living, I mean, the auditoriums and the arenas, and I mean, all you had to do was just jump on the freeway.
Yeah, and then at the same time, we had all the smaller bands like Dead Kennedys, bands like Rat, you know, and like, who else, dude?
Well, all that Orange County stuff. I mean, you had, you know, TSOL and Social D and all that stuff, and right?
Bands like at that level were going through and playing like our Arlington Theater and our De Anza Theater, which were the two theaters here, you know, so it'd be like the Great Whites and the Rats and the like that level heavy metal bands, and then the Dead Kennedy, TSOL, all the Orange County stuff that was going on. My first punk show was 7 Seconds and Uniform Choice, and it was the Walk Together, Rock Together tour, you know.
The best album, man.
Yeah, I don't remember how old I was. I was pretty young. I think I was like, I want to say 12 or 13, you know.
Oh, man. Very, very impressionable.
Yeah. So like just a mixture of a bunch of stuff, you know, and like we didn't get introduced really to ska bands until like the two-tone thing came around, because my brother Frank was like into the British stuff, and then it kind of transferred over a little bit into like the jam, into like mod stuff and the Who, you know what I mean?
Well, what was at that time? Could you pick up K-Rock from there? Because I mean, even though it was such a popular station, I know that it didn't have a very, very distant reach, right?
We had K-Rock, but we had really cool record stores. You know, like for instance, I remember being a kid and being in the first Mad Platter that was here in Riverside, this little tiny hole in the wall, and the dudes in Slayer would walk in. You know what I mean? To like Style Records. You know what I mean? Like shit like that. We had access to a lot of shit. You know, like, you know, Riverside just happened to be one of those places. You know what I mean? That bands would come through. You know, like there was always been, I guess, promoters and stuff here. You know,
I know definitely. Well, to me, because like when I think about how people grew up in LA in those kind of golden '80s years, to me, for what we assumed was going on was that everybody was just listening to K-Rock and that was it, and there was a few record stores. But of course, now that I'm hearing these stories from him, like, no, man, that was just a tiny piece of a huger pie that you guys had all access to be able to just absorb music. There was unlimited number of resources for you guys at your fingertips. And as a kid, as a teenager, oh my God, man, you guys were just in heaven.
Yeah, it was a lot of band culture and skate culture and like stuff like that. You know, like Riverside was one of those towns where people would cruise up and down like one of the main streets, you know, every Friday and Saturday night. And like the older dudes would bring out like launch ramps and stuff. and like we were young kids, we'd skate down there at night and it was cool. We'd be skating with all these older dudes while people were cruising, you know what I mean? Like, and it was kind of a cool scene, and then, like I said, we had the theaters that had shows on the weekends. So chances are, that you can catch a cool show, or like there was other dudes that would do shows like at VFW halls, like in places like Fontana and like all the like neighboring towns.
What kind of year was that window right there that you just told me about? When you talk about Shout at the Devil tour, because I remember that because I was a freshman and I saw that year, so I remember that.
Yeah, that was like
80, 82, 83.
Yeah, that's when I was like I said, 9, 10, 11. You know what I mean?
Dang, you were younger than I was.
And I remember probably when I was about maybe 12 or 13, we used to go to my cousin Junior's house. His name's Juan, but he went by Junior because he was Juan Jr. I remember going to his house, and I was a kid just sitting on the curb in front of my parents' house. I had my skateboard, and the Sick Boys, have you ever heard of the gang, the Sick Boys from the 80s?
The band?
The punk gang.
No. I remember names reading about the gangs that were kind of popping up around there, but tell me about the Sick Boys.
Okay, well, I think I want to say that the song "Sick Boy" from Social D might be loosely about that. I'm not sure, but it was the Sick Boys were a gang that were around like during the 80s punk scene, LA. Then they were like Orange County, Los Angeles, and then Riverside. Well, one of the guys moved into our neighborhood, probably, 5 houses down from my parents. So the Sick Boys would always be, random ones would be walking up and down my parents' street. I was sitting on the curb one day, and this guy with like Liberty spikes, or actually, I'm sorry, it was a Tri-Hawk. He had a Walkman on. I had a Walkman on. He taps me on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, kid." I look up, and he goes, "You like punk rock?" And I didn't know what he was talking about. Had no clue. He goes, "Check this out." And he pulls the tape out of his Walkman. He hands it to me, and he goes, "Listen to this," right? So I was like, "Oh, thanks, man." And he walked away. I put it in, and the first song on there was "I'm Not a Loser" from Descendants. And then what else was on there? Some of the Vandals, Peace Through Vandalism. What else was on there? Some 7 Seconds.
Yeah. What
else? Some Uniform Choice. So that, and then I remember going to my cousin Juan's house in Orange County a couple weeks later, like trying to tell him about this music, like, "Hey, dude, check this out." I told him the story, and he goes, "Dude, come here." He walks me up to his bedroom, dude, and fucking shows me his record collection. And he's like, "These are all my friends, man." And it's like 7 Seconds, Uniform Choice. He's like, Pat Dubar, the singer of Uniform Choice, was like one of his best friends. My cousin at the time was playing in a band called Just Because, and he was like pretty much like in the scene, he's like touring with like Minor Threat and all these bands, you know what I mean? It was like the beginnings, like the first straight edge scene. And here's my cousin like head first into it, and we had no clue, he's like telling us, he's like, "Oh, dude, that's badass, like you guys fucking found this shit, fucking cool, whatever." So we get back to Riverside, and about a week later, my other cousin calls me from Moreno Valley, and his family had just moved from Pico Rivera to Moreno Valley. And he calls me and goes, "Hey, man, there's a show fucking in Riverside that me and my brothers are going to. You guys should come check it out." I go, "Yeah, dude, we'll meet you there." So he tells me, we show up, and it's the 7 Seconds Rock Together, Walk Together tour. So that ended up being our first punk show. At the time, like I said, Eddie had already been playing guitar. Jerry had gotten a drum set. They started actually learning how to play. In high school, they started jamming with one of our friends, like one of our buddies that played bass. And at one point, Frank, I remember he bought a bass and just kind of never did anything with it, just left it at the house. So I took it upon myself to learn how to play. I think it was Flight of Icarus from Iron Maiden.
Oh, man, that's a good song.
So I learned how to play that.
Did you sing like Bruce, too, while you're playing it, or did you just put your leg up?
No, but I started out trying to sing for bands, to be honest with you, and trying to sing kind of like that. You know what I mean? It was kind of funny, a little kid trying to do that. But, yeah, that's the first song I learned. I remember, like, showing Eddie, like, "Dude, look, I'm learning it." You know what I mean? Like, and he was kind of like, whatever. And then
what was Eddie? So you're discovering punk. So what is Eddie getting into? Like when he's trying to form that?
we're right there together the whole
Oh, you're
time.
right there at the same time. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and like Jerry too, But Jerry was like a little bit older than me and Eddie, so Jerry had like we'd go to shows, and then Jerry had started going to Hollywood and actually getting backstage, like at the Motley Crue shows and like at Poison shows and like the whole glam thing, kind of. And Jerry would like go out and like be gone like on crazy shit for like the weekend, and he'd come back, tell us the crazy stories, like, oh, dude, we ended up boning these chicks, here and there, like just like the Motley Crue story.
Oh yeah.
Shit.
Did you see that Motley Crue series that was on Netflix?
I saw the movie.
The movie. Did you see the movie? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, Jerry kind of was like into that scene. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like
that
well.
just the excessive like rocker. I mean, those are also like at the same time that punk is brewing up, and those kind of, they call those kind of early golden years. That is the peak of the glam metal Sunset Strip stuff, right?
Yeah. And then like comedy, like I said, like Jerry was always like, he had the subscription to Mad Magazine. He was always like ordering the gags out of you could do the mail order and shit like that. He was always influencing like the band, like in that kind of sense as well. Not only musically, but that, because he's always had like a good ear for music as well. Mm-hmm. He's always kind of listening to the same kind of stuff at the same time we do. So that's why it worked when we decided to start playing, us three. Jerry and Eddie were kind of, I think, overplaying like this kind of stuff, like just top shit, like K-Rock type stuff.
Yeah.
That they were playing with the one dude. But like, it was like the one dude's band or whatever. And Eddie and Jerry, I think, were just playing with them because it was like a dude to play with. They played backyard parties and stuff like that, like they were already like doing stuff. But Eddie just was like, hey dude, me and Jerry are going to start jamming. You should play the bass. So we just started jamming, dude, in one of the rooms in my parents' house. And like I said, after we had a few like songs, Frank, would be in and out of the house. And he just kind of was like, hey man, I'll sing for you guys until you guys find a singer and kind of like manage and get you guys, get shows and stuff. So
was he being pushy? Was he like, I picture like Bob from La Bamba. Hey man, I'll just be your vocalist. No.
It was just kind of a casual thing. Once we had some songs, it was kind of like we went and recorded a demo, like a 4-song demo in this dude's bedroom. Like I remember doing like tracking the bass in this little girl's bedroom, literally like stuffed animals and shit all over. Like I'm standing on the side of her bed, like in a bedroom, and this dude's like in another bedroom with the console, you know what I mean? And that was the 4-song demo. I think it was like, I want to say Thrift Shop Junkie, Closet Monster, maybe, I think You Don't Have a Clue, I want to say. And I think Method to This Madness, maybe.
You get the demo done. When do you guys start doing shows and stuff?
I think we were already doing like, I want to say like backyard parties. I can't remember the exact year, but probably late 88. By late 89, 90, we had already started going out, like venturing off. We kind of got lucky and got in at the same time this club, Spanky's Cafe, which ended up...
wait, before you get there, okay, so who came up with the name?
Of the band?
Yeah.
My buddy JR, actually. We were sitting in his living room, and we were trying to think of a name for the band. And at the time, everybody had like short, simple names. And we wanted a name where people would go like, what is that? You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Like not know what style it was just by reading the name. And our buddy said, why don't you call your band fucking Voodoo Glow Skulls? Because he had one from Disneyland. It was a skull, a glow-in-the-dark skull you'd buy. You walk out of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, or Pirates of the Caribbean. I think he had one hanging on the wall or on his fireplace when we were just smoking weed in his living room and listening to music, trying to think of names for the band. He just blurted it out, and none of us really laughed. We were like, that's kind of cool. And it kind of just stuck.
What were some of the other names that you guys had kind of suggested in the air?
I think we kicked around, I want to say What You Will.
Like, would you want to be a Fastway band?
We did know about Fastway, which awesome. That's
true metal, and and then becomes Irish punk guy.
You gotta hand it to Dave, man. It's like successful with Fastway, right? Awesome fucking dude, classic fucking songs. And I've had the conversation with him. We sat there, me and my brother sat there and sang Fastway songs to him, and he had no clue. He was like, oh man, you guys know. We're like, fuck yeah, dude, badass shit. Fastway's badass. I always listen to that fucking song.
The riffs on "Say What You Will," man.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
cool. The end up doing Floggy Molly, dude, having a second fucking successful career. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no shit. So you go "Say What You Will," and I'm assuming other kind of metalish sounding names.
Yeah, I can't really remember what else
That's a
we came
long
up
time
with,
ago.
but I think that was one of them. I want to say.
So Voodoo
But,
Glow Skulls, and then the legend was born.
oh man, thanks.
So you guys say Voodoo Glow Skulls. What's the first thing? Like, who starts designing all the art and then the logo and the font? Because, well, like I said, when I discovered you guys, you look at the "Who Is This Is" record, which is kind of like the reference point. You see like the anime characters and all that stuff, and then it kind of morphs in more like kind of like cholo aesthetic. When you guys first come out as Voodoo Glow Skulls, who's appointed to design the aesthetic of what the band is going to kind of look like on albums and stuff?
At the beginning, the original logos, like on the demos and all that stuff, were me and my friend Randy would just sit there and doodle shit. Like when I was younger, I fucking used to do a lot of like I literally got hooked on fucking meth for a couple years, and me and him would just tweak out and fucking draw and shit like that, and that's kind of where we came up with the original stuff, Oh, by the way, that was just like 2 years of my fucking shit. I got myself off that stuff. It was probably like a couple of the worst years of my life.
Oh, I bet, man. I bet.
Yeah.
Well, thank God you're off that, man.
Yeah, it was like 15 to 17 or something like that. Oh yeah, it was crazy. Saw some crazy shit, dude. Me and my buddy would just sit there and draw, dude. We even like sat there and painted like our first banner, which I think we still have somewhere. But like all hand painted shit, and like he came up with the original Voodoo Man, which was more like a Rasta looking Voodoo Man, like a little character with like the X's on the eyes.
Kind of looked like a voodoo doll.
So that was the original Voodoo Man, because that's when we started like having like an Eddie, like Iron Maiden did. So that's kind of where that kind of started.
Did he have a name? It was just Voodoo Guy?
No, I just didn't really have a name then, it was.
You already had an Eddie in the band, so you couldn't say Eddie.
Right.
Say Freddie.
Right. So yeah, like it wasn't until the Feedback album where the actual Voodoo Man came in. That was kind of the beginnings of all the art, and then after that, when we started doing records, we used the Voodoo Man still in the original logo and stuff. We even used it again, like on the Potty Training Years, like the re-release we just did. You know what I mean? To like kind of bring it back up to light. And the "Who Is This Is," I can't remember whose decision. I want to say, I think it was the artist Taz who came up with that. They told him the name, and that's what he came up with. Because I think
the anime characters. And was that all? That was on Doctor Strange.
That was straight up Dragon Ball Z, and we didn't. And we kind of didn't know how popular it was at the time, and then after the record came out, we kind of got the gist of it, because so many people were like, "Oh man, that's awesome! You guys use that," So that was kind of cool. And then eventually, we got a cease and assist from the company. That's why there's a wrestling mask on it, now.
Yeah.
And we have changed the wrestling mask on it a few different times,
So how much is my original "Who Is This Is" worth now? Is it got any value on it?
I have no idea. But yeah, that was kind of like that for the first album, and then when the Epitaph release came out, that's when we decided to do this character, because we had the original character, and this German kid who was a fan just sent us like this sketch, like, here, I drew this guy, like redid this dude for you kind of thing. And like kind of made this dude into a character for you guys. And it was kind of like a rough of what we ended up with. So what happened is we had the doodles from the kid that he sent like in a fan letter. And we kind of went, let's give this to a real artist and have them kind of come up with like the real character, So we gave it to our buddy Ken Stansberry, who did the Feed My album cover, and he did that. And that's actually like a painting. It was a big painting, like a wall-size painting that he painted in this building called the Life Arts Building in downtown Riverside, where it's like an old girls' school I think it's like old girls' school, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And the bottom story in the basement, there's a huge like Olympic-sized pool. It's all creepy down there. And the building's like haunted and shit, That's where he painted it. He'd go there at night and just kind of put put his hours in after he'd go out to bars and stuff, and sit there and paint the album cover, man. And he's the one that, honed it in for us.
Where's the original painting at now?
Mr. Brett owns it.
Ah, of course.
Yeah.
And I want to get to that. Let me go back a little bit before we get to the epitaph and how you came and all that. Now, when you guys were playing shows, were you guys just primarily in Riverside and just kind of staying in SoCal, or were you guys actually like touring outside of Southern California?
The way the touring started was the owner that ended up opening up the Showcase Theater in Corona. His first original club was called Spanky's Cafe.
Yeah, Spanky's Cafe.
Yeah, and it was just a little pizza place where all the like lawyers and all the the business people from downtown and city people would go eat lunch. Kind of like a high-end Italian food restaurant.
Yeah.
And so anyways, they started doing shows there, and we started playing there, and he started having bands from out of town and other states come through, and we happened to get on a show with this guy named Mark, who was from Orange County but went to school at UC Berkeley, so he was part of the whole Gilman Street scene. He was like, "Hey man, I want to bring you guys up north to play Gilman." So he did, and that's kind of how we got in, like with the whole Gilman and the whole East Bay scene, when like we caught like the very tail end of Operation Ivy and got to play with like Screeching Weasel for like, I think it was Boogada Boogada Boogada. Played with like Green Day there, played with L7. So this goes on and on there.
Skank and Pickle.
Played with them there. All the Lookout Records bands, like all those bands. Like
yeah.
we were fortunate enough, man, to be there during that and to be there for the beginning of Rancid. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing, was
now, were you guys one of the only kind of younger bands? Because like, I mean, Fishbone did kind of, some people would say ska punk, but you guys kind of like helped define what ska punk was to, I think, most of the people, I guess, that lived outside outside of the scene, right?
Well, I think it's just the term that didn't come around till then, because there was a band from Texas called the Big Boys that were doing it way before any of the said bands. And there was, I think, a few others as well. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was Core Tattoo from like, I can't remember if they're from, I want to say maybe Basque country.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I mean, because that, yeah, you know what? That's an entirely other discussion, which I also want to touch on that, because there was that 90s Latin alternative thing. But before we get there, what do you attribute to being noticed by Epitaph? Because did you guys aspire to be signed to a particular label? Were you guys content with what you were doing? Or what were your aspirations at the time prior to Epitaph?
So, like, to get back to it, it was the guy Mark Grody that kind of started branching us out. So we started going to the Bay Area for weekend shows. And then he decided, let me book a tour through Texas, because at the time there was a book called Book Your Own Fucking Life. And you can go into the back of it, and there was literally people that would just do shows in their basement, their backyard, wherever. So our first tour was that, basically, in a little minivan. It was to Texas and back. So it was basically the Southwest. Went to like Albuquerque and like first in Arizona, stopped in Arizona. Then we stopped in like New Mexico, and then we went to Texas and then came back.
Yeah.
That was as a 4-piece band. It's just me, Frank, Eddie, and Jerry, with that guy Mark Grody driving us. That's when we met like Zach from like Rise Against for the first time.
Okay.
When we were kids. I think I was like, I want to say I was probably about 17, 18 years old. And we met, I can't remember who else, but a lot of people that we actually ended up staying friends with throughout the years, and who actually ended up doing stuff in the music scene, and actually, with their bands. So it was kind of cool. Then once we started doing that, we just kept on doing that and started branching out farther, started going like to the Midwest, and then started going up north, and we would cross paths with other bands, and like kind of just network and start getting shows with other bands and offers and stuff like that. We started moving into, from playing like basements and things and VFW halls into like playing actual clubs.
Was it still just doing primarily punk lineups?
Yeah, but there was other bands that had started playing, influenced by Fishbone and bands like that you were talking about, like the Blue Meanies in Chicago.
Okay,
they were playing, they had started playing already and stuff like that. That's like around when Who Is This Is was about to come out.
Okay.
That's because we had started playing like Spankies with like Guttermouth and Face to Face, bands that were on Doctor Strange, and Bill was always there at the shows. So we were just like, hey man, when are you gonna put our record out? And he was like, are you serious? And like we kind of were just kind of said it, didn't think anything of it. And he's like, I'll put it out. Let's do it. So that's how Who Is This came about. And then we put that out, and by the time we put that out, we were already selling out like clubs, like small clubs everywhere, like in Texas, Chicago, you know what I mean, places like that.
You guys doing mail order, like fan mail, that whole type of thing? We
were doing that. We'd get the letters, I remember we'd always have like the stacks of letters, that kind of stuff. I remember all that. And then Who Is This sold a lot and had a far reach. So one of the interns at Epitaph, this guy named, I think it was Tony Lee, was going into the office every day and playing our record. Mr. Brett was walking in every day and he'd hear it. One day he asked Tony, hey, dude, who's this band that you've been playing every day? And at the same time, Tim from Rancid had been telling him about us because we had helped Rancid out. He called our record store out of the blue one day and was like, hey, man, this is Brett, from Epitaph Records. I'm trying to get a hold of Voodoo Glow Skulls. And it was my brother Eddie that answered the phone. And he's like, well, this is Eddie, the guitar player. And he said, I want to talk about signing your guys' band, putting your record out. And which was crazy to me and Eddie. I think a few months before that, we had won tickets on the local radio punk show to go see Bad Religion at the Palladium for Against the Grain. And I remember we got to meet him and shit, and I remember standing on the side of the stage going, dang, dude, like, wouldn't it be crazy if we were on this guy's label doing this shit? And then, ironically enough, fucking a few months later, we get the phone call. And when we signed to Epitaph, it was crazy because Bad Religion had already done all this work for years, touring everywhere. So had No Effects, Pennywise had gone, all these places already because they had the Epitaph releases, you know what I mean?
That was like the Motown of punk. Dude, I mean, that was the label you wanted to be on.
Oh, yeah. Me, like, into skating, and like snowboarding and all that shit, and
all the
like,
culture.
To be in the same label as fucking Pennywise and fucking NoFX and fucking Rancid, who were like, our friend, like our friends.
I mean, at that time, I think you guys were already pretty much peers. Did you still feel like they were the big time and you guys were just still kind of like playing the holes in the wall?
Those bands had done work, like NoFX, dude. By the time, like, I remember opening up for NoFX, I think in '89 at Eugene's Bar in LA, and it was like us and Guttermouth. I remember being a fan and like going, dang, dude, we're getting to open up for these dudes. And it was just a bar, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was at the time, I think S&M Airlines had been out and Ribbed was about to come out, I think. And I remember like that and already going like, I remember watching NoFX that particular night going, dang, these guys are fucking badass. I remember like looking at them that night, and this was like back then when I dare say, like, when they could maybe barely play their fucking instruments, maybe, you know what I mean? Like this was like don't get me wrong, it was just the early years of NoFX. But what I mean by that is it was in between S&M Airlines, and which was like their first like polished, I guess, sounding record.
Okay, I gotcha.
And Ribbed, which was their first like, oh my fucking god record. Because Ribbed was just, to me, we were listening to that shit obsessively. You know what I mean? That was like, to me, that was just as good as any fucking Slayer record. It's cool shit, and I got to watch it when it was fresh, let's say.
Yeah.
And I remember just watching them play that shit and going, dang, dude, like these guys are fucking badass. Like just as good as anybody, like any big band that I grew up watching.
And Fat Records was not around yet, right?
No, it wasn't a thing then. But when we signed to Epitaph, those bands had already laid out the fucking blueprint, dude, for the other bands, and so we got to instantly go to all the countries those bands had already been touring there.
And I kind of assumed that because I remember when you guys when the word got out that you guys were signed, you never heard about you guys playing that much around. I was like, when are we going to be able to see Voodoo Glow Skulls? There was just kind of like all these stories, and like it, as much as we had at the time, if you had access to the internet, but like for us over here in the Central Valley and all that stuff, so far removed from everything, we just kind of like, it was kind of word of mouth from people that we knew that would come and tell us about what was going on. And so we're like, there's a ska scene. So the 90s ska scene is starting to brew, where I was still going to shows in Reseda and kind of absorbing all that stuff, Hepcat and all those groups and everything like that, and then forming my own band. However, still as a fan, and then finding out that No Doubt was getting signed as well, too, and then they were kind of having their second go round. Then you guys are going Epitaph. It's kind of like that. You just saw that wave of all our favorite indie bands are getting scooped up, But mind you, I mean, Epitaph at the time was still considered an indie to a lot of people, but I think Bad Religion had already left for Atlantic, right?
Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's what I knew because I would read everything, and so like Brett Gurewitz is still Mr. Brett is still running Epitaph, but Bad Religion leaves to go and releases Stranger Than Fiction on Atlantic Records, and I always thought that was kind of weird, and then it was always kind of like, that was the kind of whole thing where like, oh, they're selling out and all this, but I'm like, but hold on a second, I'm thinking that Mr. Brett seeing this as an opportunity to kind of expand the Epitaph brand through more money because Offspring's huge, everybody's huge, you wanted to be on Epitaph, you guys get on there. Now, when you guys actually sign the deal, what happens when you guys go back home and the word starts to spread?
I really don't remember. I just remember like it was a really exciting time because everything was just happening so fast and there was a lot happening. It was like, you guys are going to Japan. And I remember going to Japan and like crazy shit, dude, being driven around in these badass little, like all blacked out fucking bulletproof vans.
How soon after you guys, I'm sorry, hold on one second. Before you get to that, I want to go back to the recording of Firme. After you guys inked the deal with Epitaph, signed the contract, so, okay, we're going to put you in the studio. How long did it take you guys to record Firme?
I want to say like 3 months or something, if I remember correct. My memory's kind of foggy when it comes to stuff like that. It was a lot happening, in a very short amount of time, like really exciting, because it was always something cool, going on, a new region or cool stuff,
How long would you guys stay on the road? Would you guys be gone for like 2, 3, 4 months?
Off, I think if I remember, we take off for a month, sometimes 5 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks, sometimes 7 weeks. Come home for like a week or two, leave for another 2 weeks. It was always like that, like always kind of random, but it was a lot, just a lot of touring. I remember we spent a lot of time when you were saying earlier that it seemed like you guys never got to see us out here. It's because we spent a lot of time in Europe just hitting it hard out there. We just kept going back to Europe. We kept on just getting these offers to do cool stuff out there. And, we spent a lot of time there. And in the UK, started going more and more to, Eastern Europe, like places like Croatia and Slovenia and like places like that. We got to go to Poland, we went to Russia.
What was the response out there?
It was awesome. The weirdest place, I think, was Poland. Poland was more conservative, it seemed, like more behind, let's say. And, that was like the place with like the most language barrier, probably.
But would you guys go to Spain where they had already kind of had like the Mano Negra kind of waves and Los Fabulosos Cadillacs and all that kind of that whole other scene had already kind of gone through there. By the time you guys get there, they were already familiar with it, but you guys were, Chicanos, but to them, you guys are just another American band, right?
Yeah, well, it's different because, it's like those bands are great. Fabulosos Cadillacs, and Maldita Vecindad, all those bands are great, but, we're more of a punk thing. So for us, it was crazy, like right off the bat, playing like punk shows. We didn't really come up playing in the ska scene. We came up, like the ska scene didn't really accept us because according to a lot of them, we were ruining their scene by adding punk to it.
I could see that if you didn't have a suit and all that, kind of look, then, you weren't going to play ska and it had to be a very particular type of ska. But so you guys are kind of shunned by the ska thing. You guys are accepted by the punk. And that's kind of what I assumed too, because I would try to follow like, well, where does Voodoo Glow Skulls fall into all this? And, once you start going through the albums, Who Is This Is, the Firme records, and then whose idea was it to do it in Spanish? Was that also Mr. Brett?
No, it was actually our idea. And we didn't really think that they would do it. It was an idea that we always had, like, hey, let's do the same record, but in Spanish. And we told him, and he was just like, all right, let's do it. And they did it.
Was it any like crazy additional budget? Because I mean, there's like 2 different album covers, everything's in Spanish now.
I'm sure there was a little bit additional budget because the covers. Frank had to go in and track El Cucuy in English, and then the rest of the album in Spanish.
Who translated it?
Frank did.
Really? Are you guys all fluent in Spanish?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh shit. Okay. Because I will talk to people like my Spanish is okay, and when I try to write my first song in Spanish. When I learned to sing in Spanish, it was like, it definitely obviously helped for me to get by if I had to sing it or talk it. But when to actually write a song, an original song in Spanish, it's, I had first of all, I had to reach out to my cousin in Mexico City, who's a medical translator, and ask him, hey man, what's this? And he plays metal in Mexico, and he's all, hey man, don't even worry about it because our drummer tries to write songs in English And I know it doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't matter. The fact that you're even trying will get you points. I said, no, man, because if we release that here, the people that will pick us apart are the Chicanos, or like the people from Mexico that live here, not the people in Mexico, but it's be like the people that we're going to be playing for. We don't. It's like we want to make sure that we're coming correct. So I had to reach out to a buddy that broke it down for me. So that's impressive, man. That's good to know that you guys actually did this all yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Frank had my parents proof it or not. I don't think he did, because we did all this shit in Hollywood, kind of cool recording feed, man, because we got to live in the fucking Roosevelt Hotel for a while, while we were recording it. And
that's a great place, man.
It was crazy, man. Like, I remember coming home from one night recording, and then I think actually it was the night Rancid played the Whiskey. Coming back to the hotel, and I think Charlie Sheen was sitting at the fucking bar, and I went and sat down next to him and had a rum and coke, and bullshitted. And then another night, Morgan Freeman was in the fucking elevator with us. Cool shit like that, Hollywood shit, all of a sudden you're down there, and then not only that, but you're in this hotel, dude, fucking in the mix, all these people everywhere, and like going to cool shows after you're done recording your tracks, like going to see Total Chaos and like bands like that are on Epitaph too, and just happen to be playing like the Troubadour or the Whiskey, shit like that.
No, that's good. That's insane, because I mean, Chicanos, we're always drawn to, if we ever see like a Latino surname in one of the bands that we really dig, because you just don't always expect it. It's like, and going back to watching Oingo Boingo, and you're like, oh, there's Johnny Vatos Hernandez. Holy shit. He's a Mexican. I want to know more about him. Like, is he Chicano, or is he like, is he Venezuelan or Puerto Rican or something? Like, oh shit, he's a Mexicano like me. So when you see a band like yours, of course, all of us are drawn to you, and like all the Chicanos know Voodoo Glow Skulls. I mean,
oh yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, it was like I said, it was like a dream, it's like, wow, we're getting to do all this cool stuff. When you're a kid, I was like literally like 19, 20 years old, 21, you know what I mean? Like, just kind of getting hooked up, you know what I mean? And like getting to travel. And
so when Firme finally comes out, this is another kind of like an interesting thing, because this is when I was working at the record store, and we weren't even signed yet. We're still just driving to LA, so we were keeping an eye on all the bands that we grew up really, coming up liking. One of them was No Doubt. They're on Interscope, and then you guys are on Epitaph. Both your guys' albums drop on the same day. I remember buying them both, and
other album?
Yeah, Tragic Kingdom and Firme both dropped on October 10th.
That's right. That's right. I have a T-shirt, actually, because we had the same print. We both used to use the same print shop at that time.
Uh-huh.
I have a shirt with both albums on it.
That's crazy, man. What a wild day. I mean, it's a great day to be a music fan, man, because you're just like, all right, man, this is my winter. This is going to be like, we're going to the fucking Halloween parties and all the keggers. This is what's going to be playing. It's either going to be fucking Tragic Kingdom or Voodoo Glow Skulls Firme. And the Sublime thing was barely starting to reach over into this area. So, and of course, Bad Religion, like any of the Epitaph stuff, Offspring, but then it was just like Tragic Kingdom and Firme, and maybe a little bit of the Boss Tones that I kind of already, because they had already been around for a while. But I mean, you guys kind of defined it for us, for California bands, man. That was just an exciting time.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, no, it was cool to be around all that stuff. Like, we got to go do cool stuff with Sublime, you know what I mean? And like, we did, I think we did a frat party for, I think it was USC. And they played UCLA. We played the after party, and it was the football team's frat house.
Yeah.
And they lost that night.
Oh.
Us and Sublime. And on a side note, the funny thing is that dog used to try and bite Jared all the time. Bradley used to go, "That's weird, man. He doesn't try and bite anybody else but you." But yeah, man, we did that shit. Watched the They played for like 3 hours that night. And
really?
Then, then they opened up for us at the barn, in Riverside one night, and Bradley comes up and was like, "Do you guys mind if we play the patio?" I think he like asked the promoter. Promoter came up and asked us, and we're like, "We don't give a shit, do whatever." So they set up in the patio, the back patio, and played underneath this tree. It was badass.
Sublime came to Bakersfield once, and they were so late. The promoter ended up calling, find out, hey man, where's the band? They're not here. It's already running late. It was the Grabbers on that show. The Grabbers had already played, and we're still waiting for Sublime to show up. But so the Ziggins just showed up. So they hauled ass all the way to Bakersfield. They ended up playing. Sublime finally shows up. They only get like 3 songs in, and the fight breaks out in the lobby. Show's over. I bought like a 40 ounces of freedom from Bud. They just look fucking exhausted, like they've been on the road or driving. And then that was it, man. They never came back. And then after that, it was over. They had blown up. As soon as it got started, it was over, which was really sad.
Yeah, it was, dude. We actually were starting the Garden Grove tour the morning they found him dead. We were actually starting the tour with them. They had started the tour 2 days before, I want to say, and they were in Chico the night before. And we were jumping on the tour the next day in San Francisco, and we were supposed to support them on that whole Garden Grove tour. We got to, I think it was the Great American Music Hall, and Miguel was waiting for us at the front steps. And I remember he opened up the side of our van door, and he goes, "Hey man, sorry to tell you guys this, but they found Bradley dead in his hotel room this morning." And I remember going like what? He goes, "If you guys want to still play, man, can." He said, "You can still go on the whole tour. They're going to send like a movie with the tour with like a big screen. If you guys want, you guys could do it still. But if you don't want to, I understand." And I remember we were tripping out. And we were like, "We're just going to go home, man." And fucking, he goes, here's the new album. And he handed us Garden Grove. And it was like right before, I want to say, it was about to come out.
Yeah.
And I remember getting in the van and listening to it as we're leaving San Francisco, going over the Bay Bridge, going, "Fuck, dude, this record's going to be huge." I mean, this is like the next fucking Jimi Hendrix right here,
Yeah. I mean, it still lives on today, man.
What an honor, though, man, for those guys to think of us to go on the tour of their record. Such a classic record.
I know I've got all the Sublime documentary stuff from before, but I don't recall that you guys weren't.
No, we were never asked to do any of that stuff. I don't know why. I think it's just because we never kind of we're out here and they're out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, we just never. I don't think people know, man. Like, and I don't think Bud and Eric really. I think those guys were kind of spun, through all those years. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I kind of know that, because I was right there for the whole thing. I don't think they realized it.
That's too bad because you guys were you guys were definitely through all the things that you saw and all experienced on your own, but as well as like being there to be, and you just imagine like what would have happened. I know it's a downer to think about it, but like what would have happened had he lived and then you guys done that tour. I mean, does that kind of like go through your guys' minds all the time?
I mean, to be honest with you, it's not like me or Eddie, having been like, whoa, what if it would have happened? And like, yeah, to me, it's kind of sad sometimes when you hear his songs come on the radio. Like, damn, dude, like literally, like for me, I hold them up there just like I hold Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix. And to me, it was like being right there watching something like that come up.
And to your guys' credit, you guys are just as important as the Sublime and everything that was brewing at the time. That's why I'm like, that's wrong that they didn't include you in any of the like the tales and exaggerations. And then I know that Bradley's widow has been trying to put this movie out. I mean, Lana Del Rey does Summertime and all that stuff, but then they don't even release the movie. I don't even know what's happening to it, and I've tried to find out. I mean, do you know anything about it?
Those guys are in a whole different world than we are, dude. You know what I mean? So it's like, I could kind of see how something like that just kind of doesn't come up. To us, it's no big deal. We've kind of done our own thing, dude, and kind of like to think we've created our own thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though we've been part of all this cool stuff, for us, we've just always still like tried to do our own thing.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, let's bring it back to you guys. So you guys come out with Firme. You guys follow it up with Baile de los Locos.
Yep.
And then you got all those classics. I mean, Feliz Navidad. I mean, I think the first time that I saw you guys, because I saw you guys here a couple times. I remember the second time I fucked up my knee because I still have the Firme hoodie that I bought at Jerry's Pizza. We were right up in the front, man. We were downstairs in the basement. And I think it was Baile de los Locos. And then Band Geek Mafia. You guys kind of complete the Epitaph era. You said you were doing the punk thing, which definitely you guys were still kind of on your own thing. But when they start talking about like the demise of the whole ska thing was going on. Nobody was listening to ska anymore. You guys thankfully were able to avoid all that.
There was a moment there where, like, when emo was kind of coming in, I think around then, there was kind of like a lull, like it had been oversaturated. You'd see those TV commercials where, those car commercials where you could fit a ska band in here. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
people are going to start just going the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for Voodoo, as much as people like to lump us in with that whole third wave of ska thing, we've kind of always liked to go the other way. That's why we did the album like Violet. Let's do something heavy because everybody else is doing like this kind of poppy ska stuff.
Yeah.
But we decided, to do this heavy record.
Yeah, man, those are classics. Did Mr. Brett have any really big influence on how you guys were gonna sound? Because you listen to Who Is This Is and you go to Feederman, and so it's like you can hear every single part. How did he tweak you guys to become the group that we ended up hearing on those Epitaph records?
He didn't. Brett didn't work with us on anything until Symbolic. That's all. That was all us. The songwriting and all that stuff, all that has always been us, and it still is. It's mostly, for the most part, always been me and Eddie. Yeah, that's why it's still the core of the band and the songwriting is still here.
And the comedy and the lyric, when you see, Baila Los Locos and then the Band Geek Mafia, who's the one with the bigger sense of humor, you or Eddie?
Probably Eddie, to be honest with you. He's always been more into comedy, more like going to see live comedy, stuff like that. He's always showing me stuff. Yeah. I'm more hands-on and kind of doing my own thing. He's more into like discovering new bands and checking out new comedians and stuff like that.
Well, like they would say, there's a saying that's like, comedians want to be musicians and musicians want to be comedians.
Right. Yeah. No, he's more like on that tip. He's more hip than I am when it comes to all that stuff, dude. He's always been like the guy that's like, oh, check out this band, dude. They're awesome. And he's always right. 6 months later, they're big. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. You guys scroll through all the records, fast forward, then the voice of Voodoo Glow Skulls, your brother Frank decides, I'm done. I mean, because musicians, after a while, people just like, I'm just kind of over it.
We were spinning our wheels, I think, with him. And at the same time, he had stuff, I think, going on in his personal life that he kind of had to pump the brakes on the career to handle. And it was his decision. He decided, I'm kind of done. He was kind of tired of touring and kind of just tired of the lifestyle. He decided to quit. Fortunately, we had Ephraim. Me and Eddie
how soon did that happen after he decided to quit?
I don't really remember, to be honest with you. I think it was maybe 4 months or so, maybe, I want to say.
Did he come to you, or did you guys say, hey, man, we need you?
No, well, me and Eddie were trying to decide what we wanted to do. Are we going to just start a different band altogether? Or first and foremost, we had to save the commitments because according to Frank, he was done with music altogether. And me and Eddie didn't want to lose all of the contacts and hard work we were done, or our booking agent, and things like that. We had stuff booked in Europe already. We had stuff booked in Canada, and we had U.S. stuff booked when Frank quit. We wanted to fulfill our commitments. Ephraim just happened to be hanging out with the guys from DFL. They were telling, he was at one of their houses, hanging out with them in the backyard. One of them just mentioned, oh, did you hear about Frank quit Voodoo or whatever? They said, dude, you'd be a perfect fit for that band, Ephraim. Because at the time, I think Death by Stereo was on hiatus. He reached out to Eddie. Eddie was like, yeah, it kind of sucks, because we have these commitments or whatever. And Ephraim was like, oh, dude, I'll fill in. So Eddie was like, really? And he goes, yeah, I think I could do it. So that's how the conversation started. And originally, we were just going to fulfill the commitments we had and do the last tours. And then that way, me and Eddie could keep all the contacts for our next project kind of thing.
So you guys were seriously thinking about scrapping Voodoo altogether and just starting an entirely new band?
Kind of, yeah. Me and Eddie were kind of well, it didn't really make sense at the time. We didn't think there was anybody that could step in. It's really hard, dude, to fucking replace a singer. It is. Dude, it's fucking hard.
At any point, did your parents kind of step... Are your parents still around?
My dad, not my dad. My mom is. My dad passed away probably, 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Oh, rest in peace. He got to see like the best time, all the success. Let me ask you about that, because Latino parents, they always hope the best for us, of course, and like they let you see all that, and they got to see. I'm sure your dad's all, see, this is why I let him go see all these crazy fucking shows. What did your parents think about all this?
But to be quite honest with you, man, we did some of our best shows after the fact. One of the best shows we've done in our whole career has been with Ephraim.
Oh, really? You really think that?
I know that, dude. I've been in the band.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I mean, like, when I think of Voodoo shows, man, it's just like complete chaos. One of the last times I saw you was at the Warped Tour, and it was like you were kind of like on one of those hay bale stages on the side.
Yeah, and again, I'm saying one of the best shows we've ever done.
Okay.
I said we've done some great shows already with this lineup, and we've covered a lot of ground. Like, we've basically been almost everywhere we've been with the original lineup with this band multiple times already.
Is it easier because you have one less family member you have to deal with? Because I know how it's got to be crazy when you're dealing with family, like you're working with them and you're living with them, you're growing up with them. Is it easier just you and Eddie in your world, and then you got Ephraim?
Yeah, well, Ephraim's happy dude. Ephraim's a happy dude with a positive attitude. It's like, how can it not be easy to live with someone like that and travel? It makes it really easy. So that's why I think it ended up working, and people ended up liking it, because it's Ephraim. People, he's a great attitude and a lot of energy. When we did all those first things with him, that's why we ended up just, hey, let's just keep on doing it. People are liking it. We're getting great response from it. The people that, of course, there was a lot of people that, it's not the same and blah, blah, blah. We wouldn't want it to be. What fun would it be for us to get a new singer on top of that and have him sound exactly the same as the old one? To us, it'd kind of be like, eh. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Now, does the songwriting on the latest record?
Pretty much the same as we've always done. Me or Eddie will come in with a riff. At the early years, it was mostly Eddie, and then I started writing songs probably around, I want to say, Symbolic record maybe, or Band Geek. I can't remember which one. It was mostly Eddie doing most of the songwriting. Coming in with the music part of stuff and lyrics sometimes, and then we'd go in and just kind of figure out lyrics.
What about the horns? Because, well, you guys have obviously had revolving horns, but who writes the horn lines?
It's always kind of been Eddie humming them and telling them what to play.
I've tried to play along with like some of the early horn lines, and I'm like, damn, man, like, I wonder how they could just do this all night. Because there for a while, like, if you're playing your horn all the time, so I play the sax too, and I would like, you get to a point where you're playing all the time, you can keep up with everything, but then it's like, I'm like, man, I kind of do the math. How long are they up there on there? Then they're touring and all this stuff. I'm like, shit.
Yeah, you got to give horn players credit. But yeah, the horn lines, for the most part, Eddie. There's been some songs where like, the horn player will have a riff, maybe like on the first few albums, but I can't remember like which particular songs. And then like for the most part, like lately, we'll have me and Eddie will have a riff, and then sometimes I'll have like all the lyrics too, or else we'll go in with me, Eddie, and Ephraim and kind of do a joint effort, on the lyrics. Eric, our sax player, he's really good at writing horn lines. We'll send him like the demo, and then he'll come up with the horn lines usually. And then our trombone player will come up with his part a lot to go along with Eric's.
You guys are back on Doctor Strange. Did you just go back and say, hey, we want to do this again? Or
I always go into Doctor Strange, to buy records. First, it started off with the conversation because Who Is This Is it was on Asian Man at the time. They weren't really doing anything with it, just kind of releasing it, not really doing any push on it or anything. I was talking to Bill, and at the same time, Eddie was telling me that we should probably just re-release the record ourselves to like create more hype for it. I kind of just told Bill, hey man, how would you feel about putting Who Is This out again? He jumped at the chance, and then at the same time I said, and since you want to do that, how about releasing Potty Training Years on vinyl, because it never came out on vinyl. So he agreed to do that as well. And then at the same time, I said, we kind of need a label, dude, like right now for the new lineup. We're under contract with a Canadian record label, so I kind of had to talk our way out of that. They kind of let us out of the pandemic, kind of helped that a little bit too. How are we supposed to conduct business in Canada if we can't even get into their country?
No, very true.
I talked to the owner of the Canadian label and kind of explained it to him and said, look, we're ready to go with this record, and we can't really necessarily do business with you guys in Canada, so will you let us out of our contract? And the guy was like, yeah, no problem, man. So he let us out of our contract, and we went and decided, to let Bill put it out.
I like how there was a lot of promo that went into it because like I said, I would follow things. It was all this shit was going down during the pandemic. Like my band wasn't able to play. Everybody was trying to, a lot of bands were trying to figure out like what were they going to do during this pandemic. It allowed some bands to either reinvent themselves or focus on projects. And so I would follow things that you guys were doing because you guys were documenting your time in the studio. You were doing the raffles for all the vintage, which I tried to win a couple times. I never won. It was like, damn, I'm never going to win any of this shit. But I thought the raffle thing was cool. And then you were doing like the Instagram lives with your buddies and, musicians that we all knew, from different bands and all that stuff. So that was cool, man. That was really cool.
We were just kind of bored. Everyone was like going live and like just kind of talking to each other on Instagram live. Me and like our original drummer, Jerry, he's kind of like a brother to us, even though he doesn't play in our band anymore, he's still, very much part of the Voodoo family. We just started, hey, let's just fuck around, dude. And we grew up watching like David Letterman and watching like Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, sitting on the couch. I was like, I remember you would sit on a couch.
Yeah, it was called On the Couch.
Yeah.
We would bring in like, Jerry would call in as a character, and then like Ephraim would call in as Chewy from Manic Hispanic. And we were just having fun, trying to kind of entertain people and entertain ourselves at the same time and get to see each other and talk to each other while we were all quarantined in our house.
Has Ephraim always been the singer from Manic Hispanic, or is it more recent?
Gabby brought him in, I think, I want to say maybe 3 years before he passed, 3 to 4 years before he passed, yeah.
Yeah, Cadillac Tramp's another fantastic. They used to come to Bakersfield all the time during the first album, and then Tombstone Radio and like Joy Killer came through. Oh, X-Members. It was X-Members came through along with Joy Killer.
X-Members were awesome, man.
Yeah. Flocka Goo Goo.
Oh, yeah, Flocka Goo Goo. Yeah, but dude, X-Members were amazing. Fucking Ray Bones and the other guitar player, Adolescence, Roger from Adolescence.
Yeah, yeah. But Gabby was a man. Gabby was a mess, man. He was a. I mean, but he was Gabby, man. He was. By the time X-Members came through town, it was just like he'd ask us, "Hey, man, will you go over there across the street?" Because it was a little dive bar downtown Bakersfield. Hey, man, could you get me a bottle of something? And then we would, because it's Gabby. And like, oh man, it's fucking Gabby wants to go get us some booze. Let's go get it. So we run across the street and bring a bottle, and he would just like drink it and pour it all over himself on stage, man. And we were just all fucked up, just kind of like, laughing along. We were just like, we look back at it now because we're all older, and then we already lost him. It's just kind of like, fuck. Losing Gabby was definitely a big loss for the scene. I'm sure you guys, especially for you guys, because you guys had to have been friends, right?
We were fans of the Tramps for sure, and Manic Hispanic as well. The last time I saw Gabby was when we played together at Alpine Village, it was called, and like one of those stack shows where a bunch of bands play. Us, the Manic Hispanic, and I think the Interrupters. And we were taking pictures with them next to the stage. Like, fuck yeah, Manic Hispanic and Voodoo, right here. Fucking let's take some pictures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember doing that. I remember thinking, cool, we're gonna start doing stuff together because it made sense, And then I think he passed shortly after that.
And baby say 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go.
But I remember, like, it was just a bummer, dude. That was like the Cadillac Tramps, dude. To me, that's like the original. Not to be weird, that's like the original Social D. To me, it's like pre-Social D. You know what I'm saying? For like
yeah.
Archer type rockabilly punk type scene. You
Oh
know
yeah,
what I mean?
I would go to the Hootenanny. I saw them when they were like officially a band, and it was like before they did the kind of like the Pearl Jam tour and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and then when they reunited at Hootenanny.
And I'm not taking nothing away from Social D, dude. Social D's Mike Ness. Social D, awesome. You know what I mean? But Cadillac Tramps, like I said, like they were like the dudes for that scene. They were like the staple.
I think Mike Ness saw them because there's obviously there's the connection between the two bands, but you think Mike Ness saw that, he kind of absorbed that this is where we're going to take this next style, because they did kind of emulate each other, but that was just obvious connections. Then everybody just kind of.
I think it's just a matter of being part of the same scene and growing up in the same environment. Is basically what that was. Like, I saw Social D when he was like fresh out of prison. at University of Residence in like a multi-purpose room. I was standing on a fucking table, like someone's desk, like like a fold out, like the like the old wooden fold out tables, like that they'd have, like the long ones,
Yeah. Did you guys do a lot of shows play at the original Linda's Doll Hut?
No, we didn't play there too much. We played there maybe once.
Oh, the old play. I haven't been there so long, but I remember when Linda did open it, and we played there a couple times, and she was super nice. Just so this is what you guys are gonna get. They thought it was hilarious that we were from Bakersfield.
I thought the coolest thing when we did play there the one time was that Steve Soto was the fucking doorman. It was like, fuck yeah, it's Steve fucking Soto.
Oh, man. Another big loss, man. I'm an interested journalist, but also I've been a lifelong Voodoo Glow Skulls fan, man. I mean, you guys are one of those bands that are a big part of people's lives, and definitely myself as a music fan, and then as a fellow Chicano. I mean, I'm playing ska, we're on Moon Ska, you guys are doing Epitaph. Our worlds simmered in the kind of the same radar. So to be able to go and watch you guys take off like that, like I said, when Firme came out the same time as Tragic Kingdom, it was an amazing time to be a young music fan. So it's good that you guys are continuing on, because like I always tell a lot of bands, it's like, well, I don't know. Like I say, there is no reason for you guys to stop playing, man, unless you guys don't like it anymore. So maybe, hey, if your bro had to say adios, just like Dickie Barrett, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, there isn't any reason for bands to stop. And the fact that you and your brother, which I can tell now, because a lot of these stories don't get told, that you and your brother Eddie are kind of like the heart and soul of Voodoo. It makes perfect sense that you guys would want to do it, and you guys are potentially enjoying it more now than you did back then.
Dude, we still have songs left in us, man. For people that have been into the band for years, of course it doesn't sound the same. We wouldn't expect it to. Of course, we don't expect some people to maybe even like, okay, time to move on, which is cool to us, because at the same time we gain new fans. You know what I mean? But for us, man, sorry to say it, but we've kind of lived that already. It's time for Voodoo to kind of look into the future of our band. Look forward to all the great stuff we have coming up. We're lifers, dude. This is what we do.
We did it, kids. All right. I want to thank George Casillas of Voodoo Glow Skulls for being my guest on Bako Tunes. Go check out their website, voodooglowskullsofficial.com, and catch them on the road. I want to send extra special thanks to our sponsor, the attorneys at Chain Cone Styles, for the new recording gear, and of course my beautiful wife, Miranda, for voicing the intros and outros. Peace, everybody.
The Bako Tunes podcast with Matt Munoz. New episodes every week. And for the latest, be sure to follow us at Bako Tunes on Instagram and Twitter. That's BAKOTUNES. And be sure to like us, rate us, comment at us, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll be back next time.